The Paris. Well, the Summer Olympics have just begun, and we're already seeing issues at the Paris Olympics. A sabotage hits France's high-speed rail network, according to Breitbart. Here's what they have to say. France's national high-speed rail network was hit by sabotage on Friday that disrupted travel plans for tens of thousands of passengers. The malicious strikes came as travelers were expected to descend on the capital ahead of the start of the Paris Olympics. A source close to the investigation told the AFP the coordinated acts of sabotage were deliberate and targeted, adding many routes would be canceled. The national train operator, the SNCF, adding the attacks affected its Atlantic, Northern, and Eastern lines. Now, arson attacks were started to damage our facilities, the SNCF said, noting traffic on the affected lines was heavily disrupted, and the situation would last through the weekend as repairs were conducted. SNCF Chief Executive Jean-Pierre said that 800,000 passengers were affected, while Transport Minister Patrice called the attacks an outrageous criminal act. It would have very serious consequences for both rail traffic throughout the weekend and for travelers trying to make it to the Olympics. He said connections towards northern, eastern, and northwestern France would be halved. SNCF said trains were being diverted into different tracks, but we will have to cancel a large number of them. The northeastern line was not affected as a malicious act was foiled. Now, Sky News weighed in on this, explaining that two trains carrying athletes to the Olympics in Paris have been stopped by some form of sabotage following a large-scale arson attack on infrastructure on France's state-owned rail company. Here's the direct report. Watch it for yourself.
I have some breaking news for you coming into us following those attacks on the railway lines in the run-up to the Paris Olympics. Two trains carrying athletes to Paris have been stopped just hours before the opening ceremony now. We're being told that that is linked to some form of sabotage. That's according to the SNCF or the SNCF, that is the rail network inside France. Two trains carrying athletes to Paris Olympics have been stopped ahead of the Olympics opening ceremony, of course, this evening, linked to some form of sabotage. The AP news agency is reporting that. We're not clear where those trains were traveling from into Paris. We're not sure which athletes were on board, but we do have reports now that two trains carrying athletes have been linked to some form of sabotage. They have been stopped en route to Paris. We'll bring you more on that, no doubt, as and when it comes into us here at Sky News.
Now, obviously, there's been a lot of opposition to the Paris Olympics as natives have been citing the fact that the government has let the city fall into disarray and crime has increased. In fact, crime is such a problem in Paris that they've actually invited police departments, literal police, from every country around the world, which they say is standard to help keep people safe. But even the biking team, when they landed in Brussels recently, was still robbed, citing the fact that Western Europe has lost its identity, is no longer what it used to be just 50 years ago. We've exchanged safety for multiculturalism and Western identity for multiracialism. And in the end, it seems like the white Western West would love to see its own demise, as they don't want to be seen as xenophobic or racist, and they would rather have their women raped on the streets by random migrant gangs than to actually be able to say, hey, look, we need to do what we need to do. Now, questions arise whether or not this was a foreign attack, and we know that there are chances that both the CIA and the Mossad in Israel could be planning false attacks in order to stoke a war with Iran. We must stay vigilant for those types of false flags attacks from the deep state. However, it looks like the crowds continue to line up in extreme amounts. This is a clip here from the crowds at the train station. I'll try to keep that off there, but you can see how deeply, deeply cute it is. This looks very similar to the, cyber outages, which I think were attacks from CrowdStrike that hit America, as even airlines like Delta 4 or 5 days later were struggling to get their flights back online and can no longer reimburse individuals. What a terrible, terrible time to be flying or to be traveling universally. It looks like things are not going as planned. As they once said in a certain country, if the trains don't run on time, then really what nation do you have? Now, I want to remind you guys that as things like this occur, real Americans see that this country is not as stable as it used to be, and they're preparing for the unthinkable with emergency meal kits from My Patriot Supply. These one-week meal kits have over 2,000 calories so that you feel deliciously full. They have food varieties so you don't get bored, and they're nutritious, but they taste good. Nutritious and delicious is what matters to me. That's why we eat what we eat. But they're also stored in a rugged ammo can, which means they last 25 years when they're stored correctly. These are not only amazing products, but when we hit the apocalypse, you want to have your guns and your bulletproof vests, your gas masks, but have you forgot to have food to eat? Well, don't be that fool when things get bad. Go to preparewithvnn.com and get $50 off the 1-week meal kits. That's $50 off the 1-week meal kits at PREPAREWITHVNN.com today. Now, as I mentioned, there's been opposition to a lot going on at the Olympics. Sputnik explained a little bit about what's been happening here. Off the rails, Paris Olympics marred by crime, strikes, and sabotage before the starting part 2. Strikes. The Paris Games have been nicknamed the Strike Olympics as French labor unions plan widespread strikes in key sectors, including hotel employees, airport workers, and opening ceremony performers, all protesting over wage disputes. There's food shortages. Despite France's reputation for gourmet cuisine, athletes in the Olympic Village have faced food shortages, complaining about both the quality and quantity of meals, which have fallen short of the Michelin star experience they were promised. Crime. The game spotlight have exposed Paris's seedier side with the reports of crimes involving Olympians and tourists, including the Argentinian men's football team being robbed. Channel 9 staffers have been attacked during the attempted robbery, and an Australian tourist gang raped by 5 men. There's also a stinky situation as Paris also faces another unseemly threat on the eve of the Olympics, with citizens threatening to defecate in the Seine River to highlight its poor sanitary conditions, which could impact athletes competing in the marathon, swimming, and triathlon events despite a $1.4 billion euro cleanup effort. The river still suffers from toxic sewage, rat infestation, and high E. coli bacteria levels. Well, it looks like nothing's really changed for the West. I'd love to hear your thoughts below in the comments. If you like this video, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at vigilantnews.com. It's really important you do that. Or if you want to do and get these videos daily, sign up to our Rumble and to our X accounts by subscribing at Vigilant News. I'm Elijah Schaefer. This has been Beyond the Headlines. Have a great rest of the week, and may God bless the United States of America. I'm signing.